Mayak Innovatsiy, Ukrainian Pitch. I'm Dmytro and I'm super happy to be with someone very special with us today because we're going to talk about things that really not only passionate me, but are also extremely important for what is going on in Ukraine right now. We are with Dmytro Bilash. Dmytro is an entrepreneur, but he's also a specialist of information and journalism. Dmytro, nice to meet you.
Pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me, and hope we have interesting conversation for our listeners.
Oh, I am sure we will because we're going to talk about information, disinformation, security, AI, all the stuff that passionates me. But let's start with a little bit of your background because I think this really makes it very interesting. You started as a journalist, right?
Yeah, so like my bachelor degree is degree in journalism and mass communications.
Uh-huh.
So it's like journalism and mass communications are like clearly linked. And in university, we were like learning this stuff. And my first job was as a journalist. I was writing, for example, for National Geographic. So it was interesting time when I was a student. But then IT and marketing, AI sound more kind of interesting to me and more
Mm-hmm.
exciting. But at the end of the day, we somehow back to mass communication because the
Right.
relevance of this issue grew. So here we are.
Okay, we'll go back to this. But then from journalist, you became an entrepreneur and you created your first company in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, Septa. And you were already in big data and AI, and I mean that was very early on. So, how did you become an entrepreneur? How did you had that idea with your other co-founder to create this company?
We noticed that the field of communications and marketing that was growing rapidly at that time was like way too much creative. People were talking about like creating creative videos, creative articles, creative like advertising, but they were not talking and not applying enough of data approaches. And at the same time, while marketing was all in creative part, there was a growing trend of data science and machine learning. When we go back to 2013 and 14, there was first courses like on Coursera about this. So
Right.
we decided we were very like passionate about this part about ability to analyze big data to measure people's behavior in this case for business and we decided to kind of merge these two words and bring more data science and big data to the marketing, and it worked quite well.
Nice. But why did you decide to create a company to become an entrepreneur? Because this is something that became a driver in what you do. Because then after that you created another company, then you had an exit, then you now recreated something. So how did you become an entrepreneur? I mean, in 2013 in Ukraine, I mean it's before Maidan. It's not obvious. I mean, there was not a lot of tech entrepreneur in Ukraine in 2013. So you're kind of a pioneer of that. And I'm really interested to understand what was your mindset at that time.
I would say that for Ukrainians, it's very important to be self-sustainable. Like you want to rule your own life, you want to own your time, your efforts, and you want to like once you gain something, you want to be the one who is responsible for this. That's
Mm-hmm.
why for my community at least, it was extremely like clear that if you want to like own your life, you need to own the thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the stuff that like pushed me to move from the kind of just regular job to IT and to entrepreneurship. But you also need to keep in mind that I was very lucky. I was extremely young when we started the first company. I was like 18 or 19 years old. So I
Wow.
almost never worked like in a company. I didn't have this feeling of like safe environment where you get a salary, like what will be the next move and so on. And I think it's easier to do a business and start a business and make a mindset of entrepreneur once you are younger, because you don't you don't have that many obligations. You can easily shift. You can risk more. That's why my suggestion is to everybody: if you want to be an entrepreneur, start as early as possible, because it takes time to create a certain kind of neural links in your mind how that entrepreneurship works.
It's very interesting, and so basically you're saying that we should teach entrepreneurship in schools, right?
As soon as possible, as early as possible, absolutely. Because it's a different type mindset. It's a different type of soft skills you need to have, and you cannot learn it like in one day. If you start your first entrepreneurship business in 35, it will take you a few years to learn how it works, to be accustomed to the risk, to kind of accept the failure, to be able to be fully responsible for everything that you do from financial organizational side. So earlier we start, earlier you get a result, and more entrepreneurs you get.
Okay, then you started a company that has a really, really cool name, Captain Growth. I really love the name. I think this is so smart, so cool. What was the idea behind it? Because it really looks like the previous one, but what did you want it to do with Captain Growth?
Yeah, so it was kind of an evolution of our agency and service work, because we saw that many things that we do can be automated. And I think it's in this case, pretty much standard way for Ukrainian companies. You start with the services, you earn some money, you make some success, and then you want to create a product. And this transition from a service to a product is not that straightforward, and it also takes some time to learn. We were lucky enough to find a good idea and and have a good team for a good execution, which is even more important. And we created an AI that is able to analyze marketing data and suggest where the bottlenecks and growth points for your business. As a result, it was used by marketers, by entrepreneurs to automate process of their advertising. And the idea was and the product itself was very on time. It was very trendy. But the one thing that we wanted to have a very outstanding branding, because to be noticed, you need to have a good brand. And back to that time, all startups was called Lee something at the end. So it was Lee,
Rummelly, Prepley,
yeah,
all of those.
Correct. Yeah, all of those were Lee. And we said, okay, we need to do something different. There was many kind of Marvel movies going on back to that time. It was, I think, a golden time for Marvel. And we decided to create a kind of mascot of a superhero. And it worked really well, because we were targeting mostly young male Marvel fans and so on. And they really liked it. And it was pretty awkward to say the name of the company on a serious negotiations, because you are sitting with guys discussing couple of millions deal, and they're saying, oh yeah, this is Captain Growth, and it was a bit awkward for everybody. But it was even funnier from that point of view, and customers loved it, so they really they were.
It's funny, because at that time in France we had a company called Captain Train, and it was a transportation, and it became a unicorn, and they sold it for a lot of money. Captain Train, it was one of the success.
Are always successful.
Yeah, Captain is success. I agree. Well, the name of my company was Rebellion Lab, and I was Chief Rebel. And I would go see big CEOs, and hey, my name is Dominic. I'm the Chief Rebel of Rebellion Lab, and they were like, "Woo!" That was fun. That was fun. And then you had an exit, which is amazing. This is really cool, and so you had the full cycle of an entrepreneur. You create the idea, you grow the company, you make it successful, and then you successfully exit, which is really rare in Ukraine, still in the tech industry. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so we were running Captain Growth for, I think, 2 years. It was doing pretty well. At some point of time, we were approached by a guy who wrote us like, "Hi guys, have a great company, great technology. We want to buy it." So I just said, "Yeah, please. Here is a pricing page. Like it starts from $100 per month. Like please feel free to explore." And he said, "No, you didn't get it. We want to buy the company." I said, "Okay, let's talk about this." So it wasn't the first. It wasn't the first like offer like that on email. But typically they are kind of like not serious. It's a bullshit offers. So like you don't consider this. But these guys were pretty like straightforward and serious about what they're doing. It appeared that it was actually a French team. And so it was the guys who approached it was a team from France working for Israeli corporation called Perion. It's like right now a like billion company, works in advertising and media sphere, like very successful. They had a French team back to that time, and these French guys were very kind of innovative. So they were always looking for new stuff. And their CTO back to this time, I think he even saw us on a product hunt somewhere. He just took a note that these cool guys, and then when the task to like let's consider something for acquisition appeared, he like remembered about us. So
interesting.
And then it took like quite a lot of time to like go through the all negotiations. I think we started discussing selling of the company in kind of late autumn, and the company was sold on the like 1st of April, like something like so. We had the release on the 1st of April, and I think it was a good decision because we got a good deal. Second, it was very valuable to go, as you mentioned, Dominic, through the whole process of creating, running, and selling, because it gives you so much perspective for your next ventures. It gives you credibility in front of other investors as well. So it brings you to kind of another level when you don't think like every day about like, okay, what do I do today to make my life okay? You can think about some bigger things. You can like focus on more strategic stuff, and it's a huge experience. We joined real company, Piran, still operates in Kyiv. So if you have any kind of options to join, I do suggest. It's a really cool organization. Just an example, when we joined, the price for the share was like $3 per share. Right now it's 45. So like, can you imagine such a growth for a public company with 20 years history in like 3 years? Like it's crazy. So I'm really happy that I had this experience, was part of the story. It bring a lot.
Cool. Now let's move to a more complex period, but I think also extremely interesting thing, because I feel like it brings your experience in information, journalism, and AI together to help during the full scale invasion of Russia. So in March 2022, so recently, right after the beginning of the war, you decided to create a new company called Osavul. How do you pronounce it? And what does the name mean? And can you introduce us to the company?
Yeah.
Pitch us.
Yeah, I will pitch you. Okay.
I want the pitch.
So Osavul,
the Ukrainian pitch.
Ukrainian pitch, absolutely. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this Ukrainian way. So Osavul is AI-powered protection against information threats. Businesses, governments, and society overall from information threats such as disinformation, information operations, and hostile information activities. So this is kind of in a nutshell what we do as a company. Osavul is correct, like pronunciation. It's a term from Ukrainian history. It was kind of a guy responsible for intelligence in Cossacks army. So we like the name, we like the kind of kind of analogy. Yeah. And it sounds very much Ukrainian. For us, it was very important to show, like, as bright as we can that we are Ukrainians. We work on this, and it's good from a patriotic perspective, obviously, but it's also good from a business perspective, because right now Ukrainians has the most experience in everything related to the security in the world. So it obviously brings us some benefits. But when we founded it, wasn't a company back to this time. We didn't plan to make a business out of it, because when the invasion started, as everybody, like, you need to understand, like, for Ukrainians, the priorities shifted. For example, like, my home in Kiev was destroyed by 2 Russian rockets. If you see this, like, it's very center. Like, so it's not like, it was an active front line. So you kind of understand a few things. First of all, like, if you earn money just from a business perspective and you buy something, this something that you bought, and when you invest in a couple of years of your life, can be destroyed in 1 second. Right. Like, just like this. And it doesn't exist anymore. Like, your mansion, your car, your, like, and so on, even from a material perspective. But then you go further and you understand that you can be sleeping there. And everything that you was doing for your business doesn't matter at this point of time, because you can literally feel that in a second you couldn't exist on the surface of the earth. So that's why you start thinking in slightly another categories. You start thinking about the value that you bring. And we wanted, and still this is a major reason why we're doing this, to help, first of all, Ukraine and our nation, but also all democratic societies, to protect themselves from information threat, which is the weakest spot for type of society. In authoritarian society, information is not a threat, like, they control everything. But in the world of free speech, it's kind of our value, but it's our weak spot at the same time. And we help to protect, at the one point of, on the one hand, our right to say and express our opinion, but on the other way, help to protect society from those who abuse this right. We were running it as a volunteering organization for kind of a year. Like, we didn't plan to make any business of it. And then we became like kind of famous in a close circles. People started talking about us because we did a good product that was used by many professionals in Ukraine, many security institutions. And we were lucky to have a good partner, America Fund, who is sharing our values, and decided to join this journey. And together we launched Osavul, not as a volunteering organization, but as a business that works in Ukraine to still make it stronger, but right now export this expertise to those who don't have it.
How did you convince America to invest in you? Because this is also an amazing story. Like, during a time of war, you create a company, and then you raised, I think, 1 million, if I'm not mistaken, from them. What was your pitch to convince them? Was it easy? Was it like? Tell me more.
I think it's a paradox, but from my gut feeling, raising in a time of a war, in a time of any kind of crisis, and harder this crisis is, easier is to raise, but from the right people. Because in the time of the war, you don't think about you try to find people and stick to the people with the same values. You understand this, like, you put money into doing something, not doing business, right? It's important because it's about like a profit and sustainability and like development. It's all the right thing. But what is most important? You partner with people who share the same values as you are. You don't think only in terms of valuation and how much money I will get tomorrow. You think in the long term. You think, am I doing the right stuff? And this was the thinking from America Fund. We were lucky to have a partner who totally on the same page as we are. It wasn't extremely hard because we know what we're talking about. They're also Ukrainians. They also know the stuff, and they also feel the problem of information security. Because if you live in a kind of society that is not under the pressure, You may not even notice that you are influenced by information operations. But once you see how information blends with kinetic operations, with the cyber, with the rockets, with all this stuff, you understand, wow, we need to tackle it somehow. And we were the guys who able to help.
Let's discuss a little bit more that topic because I think it's really interesting for me. I mean, you know, I'm French, but I'm also American. I remember that the election of Donald Trump was highly manipulated by Russia using mostly Facebook and Cambridge Analytica scandal and all those things. We know the role that actually disinformation played in the Brexit, in the exit of the election and the exit from the UK, from Europe. So, how do you define disinformation, and how do you make sure this is efficient? I mean, how do you know what you're doing work?
Yeah, so disinformation is activity dedicated to spreading false narratives in order to change cognitive behavior of the people. So this is kind of the main stuff behind it, and this is the way how we define this information. Okay, so it's first need to be kind of planned, because if it's not planned, it means that like you can spread something like willingly, you believe in this. I cannot blame you. I can try to educate you, but it's your right to say what you think. But if there is a coordinated activity dedicated to changing somebody's behavior, this is dangerous, and this is something we are fighting with. Effectiveness of countering disinformation is the major problem, frankly saying, in our field, because it's extremely easy to create it. It's extremely easy right now to disseminate it. Considering OpenAI and large language models, it's extremely easy and cheap to produce it now at scale never seen before. But it's very hard to counter this, because once it's set, like you cannot counter it with the same technologies that you created. You need to find something different.
Right.
And this is I think the weakest spot of all Western countries, of all democracies. And the way how we address it, I think we should do it step by step. How we work, we provide tools and empower analysts in organizations who work with disinformation every day, and we empower them with AI to faster reveal, analyze, and plan a response design for disinformation. So these people, they work mostly either in governmental institutions or international institutions or in NGOs. Right now, companies are joining as well, because companies, often their profits depends on on the information, their stock prices depends on that. So they also take part in this story. And but this should be people who kind of work on the intersection between communication and security. More and more people with such expertise appear, and we help them, we empower them with the tools, we teach them, we train them, so they can design a correct response to this, either after this information appears, which is called debunk, like when you know the stuff and you try to work with this, or even before it appeared, and it's called prebunk, when you see a vulnerability and you know that somebody can attack on this weak spot, and you prepare your audience to a possible attack. So this is kind of the way how it works, but we put like enormous efforts from our team to experiment with new tools, new ways, and new technologies to better counter and measure effectiveness and plan the response better than before. So this is the major thing for us.
Excellent. So what's next for you? What's next for Osavul? I mean, I really think it's really cool, and it's truly critical. But where do you see this going? Because it's kind of like basically you declare the war, because each time a tool arrives, like those other people are going to try to counter the tool and to make it bigger. So it's an endless journey.
Yeah, absolutely. We think that the disinformation is growing growing trend, unfortunately, because you see like all over the military budgets are growing, world is preparing for conflicts. World is not going to be a better place in next 10 years. I have a bad news for everybody. So we know that based on our experience in Ukraine, disinformation, it's a layer of the war, which always exists, even when there is no shooting. So it's all over there. So we start from this hypothesis. We work in Ukraine, and we will even put more efforts to making our country stronger. But also we work actively abroad. We partner with international institutions, with other governments. Just recently, we gave a speech in European Parliament. Recently, we were giving a speech on a NATO conference, which was closed one for NATO members. So we are bringing our technology and Ukrainian expertise abroad, and this is how we make business. And we see a really good traction. We are preparing really cool contracts right now in a pace that was never seen before. We have a few right now concepts how to develop our product even further, and we are planning the next funding round because we see that it's a growing thing. So if there are any investors listening to this, feel free to drop me a message. We can discuss it. It's not there, but we are preparing ourselves for this big move, and we want to make Ukraine and Ukrainian professionals, Ukrainian industry, the most effective in countering information threats because we know how to do this.
Send me your deck, because as you probably know,
sure.
I'm raising a 50 million euro fund to invest in Ukrainian. So I'm super interested.
So you have the one. I will send you.
Yes, you might. Okay, good. Super interested. I mean, I definitely think you're into something. Great. Last question for me, and it's always my traditional question. Is what are you hoping for? And I'm not talking about the end of the war, because this is what we're not hoping for that. It's happening, and it will happen, and we will win. But what are you hoping for?
I think that, and I was thinking a lot about this lately, actually, that we need not only win the war, we need to win the peace. Because you see, if you look around on the latest history, see many countries that won the war, but in its 30 years, they're much less successful than those who lost the war. It means that winning the war and winning the peace, it's two different stories. And I want us to obviously right now focus on the war and the way how we can help our army. But then once it's over and we celebrate it for 1 week, to do not forget that the threat is still there, and we need to rebuild the country with the help of all the world. I know all the world remember that Ukraine fought for a Western democracy and join us into this big project of reinventing Europe together with Ukraine. I think it's going to be a cool ride for everybody.
I 200% agree. Dmytro, it was a real pleasure to have you on the show. Guys, if you want to know more about Osavul, you can go online, and it's osavul.cloud. Actually, the website is pretty cool, and it's very well done. So you will have all the information you need. Dmytro Bilash, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
My pleasure is mine, Dominic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cool. It's in the box.
Cool.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's in the box. Cool. It was a really good conversation. Yes, please send me your deck. I'm super interested.
Sure.
I'll share with my partner.